The air hung heavy with the smell of fresh paint as David unlocked the door to his new apartment. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air.
David had spent weeks searching for the perfect apartment, and this one, nestled in a quiet corner of the city, felt like a haven.
The building itself was old, with creaky floorboards and a faint scent of time clinging to its walls, but it possessed a certain charm that drew him in.
He set down his boxes, taking a moment to catch his breath. As he wiped the sweat from his brow, he noticed a figure standing in the hallway. It was the building manager, Mrs. Henderson, her face etched with a mixture of apprehension and concern. David frowned, a flicker of unease momentarily dimming his excitement.
Mrs. Henderson pointed a gnarled finger towards the end of the hallway.
"That door," she said, her voice raspy. "The one with no number. It's locked. Keep it that way."
David followed her gaze to the end of the hallway. Sure enough, there it was, a plain, unassuming door devoid of any markings.
He chuckled nervously. A locked door? That's it? I was expecting something a bit more dramatic.
"Mr. Davis, this isn't a joke. That door, it holds secrets. Bad secrets. You'll be safe enough if you just leave it be."
David, though still skeptical, nodded slowly. He didn't want to antagonize the building manager, especially not on his first day.
"All right, Mrs. Henderson, I won't touch it."
He tried to sound reassuring, but the image of the unmarked door, shrouded in shadow, lingered in his mind. As Mrs. Henderson shuffled away, her warning echoed in the silence of the hallway. David found himself standing alone, his earlier excitement replaced by a growing sense of unease. The apartment, once a blank canvas for his dreams, now felt different. He shook his head, trying to rid himself of the unsettling feeling. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of Mrs. Henderson's warning began to fade into the background. David settled into a routine, his initial apprehension replaced by the mundane comforts of daily life. Yet the unmarked door remained, a silent sentinel at the end of the hallway, a constant reminder of the unspoken.
It was during one such moment, while nursing a cup of coffee one morning, that a chilling thought struck him. He couldn't recall ever seeing Mrs. Henderson enter or exit that room.
Curiosity, like a weed, took root in his mind, its tendrils winding around his thoughts.
One evening, unable to resist the allure any longer, David found himself standing before the unmarked door. He reached out a hesitant hand, his fingers hovering just above the cold, unyielding surface. Hesitation warred with an almost magnetic compulsion. He knelt, his heart pounding in his chest, and peered through the keyhole. The air inside felt different, colder, stale. He could see a dimly lit room, its contents shrouded in shadow. As his eyes adjusted to the darkness, he made out a fireplace, its hearth cold and empty. Above the mantel hung a large, ornate mirror, its surface tarnished with age. And then he saw it. In the reflection of the mirror, a figure standing in the shadows. A woman, her back to him, her long, dark hair cascading down her back. She was dressed in a long white gown, her head bowed slightly as if in prayer.
He blinked, his breath catching in his throat, but the figure remained. Her stillness was unnerving, almost unnatural. A wave of dizziness washed over him, and he stumbled back from the door, his heart pounding in his chest. He pressed his back against the opposite wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He spent the rest of the night plagued by unsettling images, the woman in white a haunting presence in his thoughts. Sleep offered no escape, his dreams filled with whispers and shadows. The next morning he awoke with a start, his body stiff and unrested.
Driven by a morbid curiosity, he found himself drawn back to the unmarked door. He knelt once more, his hand trembling as he brought his eye to the keyhole. This time, however, he was met with an impenetrable darkness. The keyhole, once offering a glimpse into the room beyond, was now blocked. He pressed his eye closer, trying to make sense of the obstruction. It looked like fabric, thick and heavy. As he peered closer, he realized with a growing sense of dread that it was red. Blood red.
Panic seized him. He stumbled back, his blood turning to ice. He raced down the stairs, his mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion, and burst into the building manager's office. Mrs. Henderson wasn't there, but a young woman sat behind the desk, her brow furrowed as she reviewed a stack of papers.
The door at the end of the hall. There's something wrong.
Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down and explain what's going on.
David, struggling to collect himself, stammered out the events of the past 2 nights.
Sir, that door has been locked for as long as this building has been standing. Legend has it that a young couple once lived in that apartment, madly in love but plagued by misfortune. One day, the husband found his wife dead in the living room. He couldn't bear the thought of living without her, so he took his own life in the very room behind that door. They say their love, so strong in life, became a curse in death, their souls forever bound to that apartment.
David stared at her, his blood running cold.